In 2012, I moved into a rent-stabilized apartment in Washington Heights where my share of the rent was about $700. Over time, I began to see the neighborhood change, the neighborhood gentrify. Now, gentrification can mean a lot of different things, so let me quickly explain how I think about it in my own research. In 2000, I identified neighborhoods that are at risk of gentrification if they are low income and have few college-educated residents. By 2013, I count those neighborhoods as having gentrified if they experience above average increases in either of those two characteristics. Now, as neighborhoods change, you can imagine it's hard for longtime residents to stay in their homes. My own rent, my $700 apartment, would rent for well over $1,200 in Washington Heights today. Now, gentrification is not the only reason the city is so unaffordable, but it's an important reason. And that's why I wanted to understand better how neighborhood gentrification spreads. So in my dissertation, I set out to measure the effect of gentrification on future neighborhood rents. And I was particularly interested in neighborhood affordability because when people search for housing, they search for neighborhoods they think are affordable. And from those neighborhoods, they choose the housing options that best fit their needs. Now, I'm not the first person to ask some of these questions about gentrification, but I am one of the first to use spatial regression techniques to be able to quantify the effect of gentrification in one neighborhood on another. Using 2 decades of data in LA, Chicago, and New York, I found evidence of gentrification's ripple effects. Now, I found similar results, similar findings in all the cities I studied, but let's focus on Manhattan, since that's where we are tonight. If you take a look at the map behind me, you can see the neighborhoods in light gray are neighborhoods that gentrified between 2000 and 2013. You can also see that these neighborhoods cluster in different pockets across the city: Lower East Side, Washington Heights, where I used to live, and Harlem. Now, I did not find a statistically different difference between neighborhoods that gentrified and those that did not. But I did find differences in future neighborhood rents between neighborhoods that did gentrify. Particularly, neighborhoods that gentrified in clusters of other gentrified neighborhoods, so those highlighted in blue, for example, had higher future neighborhood rents than those that gentrified in isolation, like those in the red. And this makes sense. Landlords raise rents not only as their neighborhood is gentrifying, but in anticipation of gentrification, as they can see it coming from a couple of neighborhoods away. And that's what I want residents in gentrifying neighborhoods to understand. Your future neighborhood rents are actually more associated with the gentrification that's happening around you than the gentrification in your own neighborhood. City officials, I hope, can use these, my findings and this understanding of neighborhood dynamics to identify neighborhoods that are more likely to gentrify and develop neighborhood-specific anti-displacement policies. I also think my own experience as a rent-stabilized tenant in a gentrifying neighborhood is a good example of the type of tenant-focused policies we need to keep residents in their homes. Thank you.